Start the recording. So we are in week 5. That means we are almost to the finish line. So I'm going to review week 4 and preview week 5. So postings. Some of this I've said before. Be substantive, provide details, depth, and insights. The interesting thing is that those of you who are on this call, this is usually not an issue. So this is really for those listening to the recording afterwards. Do more than quote. Quoting doesn't prove to me that you understand concepts. Write in paragraphs and use white space. It's so much easier to read paragraphs than one big long paragraph. Use sources. I've given you the citation for the textbook. Use more than the video as a source if the video is the basis of the questions, and make sure you do citations and references correctly. I have started putting U flags if you have not done citations and references on initial postings. Analyze and apply information rather than report. If you're unclear about the definition of substantive, you can go back to week 1 required activities. Be sure that the tone of what you're posting is academic rather than conversational. And as I said, I did start giving U flags this week if postings were not substantive, if they were only opinion or experience-based, and citations and references were not used on initial postings. Just a note to you about future classes. It's very possible that you will have instructors who require a higher word count than I do. There may also be instructors who require citations and references on all postings. I've suggested it's a best practice on all, but I'm only deducting if it's not on the initial posting. And there are going to be some instructors that require more analysis, application, and insights. So this is a citation and a reference for something. I'm going to show you the work that it comes from, and then I'm going to go back and ask you why this is wrong. So here's the magazine. This is a website where somebody got a magazine article. Quality is a great magazine. In fact, it could easily be used for this week. So I'm going to go back up. For the citation, the person wrote, according to James P. Honer, a recipe for effective leadership, and then that's the date, and then the date. Is that a proper citation?
No.
Why not, Daisy?
Because it only has the date, and dates alone shouldn't be used that way, I want to say.
Actually, it's wrong because all you need is the author and the date. It doesn't need the title of the article in the citation. Okay, and then for the reference, what the person did was put the URL. Is that correct?
No.
And do you know why this one isn't correct, Daisy?
I want to say because it doesn't have the author or the date.
That's right. That's exactly right. So there it is again, and here's the corrected. For the citation, it's according to the author with the date. For the reference, you have to have the author, the date, the title of the article, the name of the magazine, and then the URL. Good, Daisy. All right, so I'm going to share with you a top secret. Don't let anyone know I told you this. I sometimes will write out my postings and save them for later. I sometimes do that for myself. I do it if I think I've made too many postings for one day. I try not to do too many in one day. But more often, I do it because if I have, for instance, an early morning meeting and I know I'm not going to get back online till maybe that evening, what I will do is I will write out a posting, I will save it, and then before I leave early in the morning, I'll hit send, send, send. And it looks like I've been in, when in fact I really wasn't. So how do I do that? All right, so I've written out a posting. It says this is a test. If it were an actual posting, it would say something. And you can see I hit the save button, which I have highlighted in yellow. When I go back in, you can see it's got my name and it's got a draft. I click on the draft, a pencil comes up, it tells me to edit it, and I don't have to edit it, but I can, and then I hit send. It's as simple as that to save a posting for later. I wanted to thank the 8 people who saved the files that I requested, which was the week and your last name, which if your last name was Green, last week it would have been for Green. So thank you to the 8 people who saved it correctly. And I believe you're the people on the phone right now. All right, so the paper. When you're writing an APA paper or any paper, you should have the depth and details, the application and analysis, the information and insights, and the explanations and examples. I think in previous weeks I've written this as aid. You need to have an introduction and a summary. Overview the topics, not the paper. Do not say things like in this paper, and certainly don't say I will, because that's first person, which is not allowed in APA. So say topics being covered include, but don't overview it as if you're talking just about the paper. Focus on the content. And for the summary, don't repeat the introduction. I know some of you have been taught, tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them, but that's really not what you should be doing in business. So do not repeat the summary, wrap up what you had to say. It's better to paraphrase and summarize than to quote, because when you paraphrase and summarize, you demonstrate your understanding of concepts rather than just the ability to find quotes. Now, I think I have this on the next slide. Yes. All right, so when paraphrasing and summarizing, put it into your own words. Do not just change a few words. There were a lot of high similarity reports this week, and it was mostly because people changed just a few words. That's not enough. So make sure you put it into your own words. I did not ding anyone for plagiarism because it seemed to me that you were trying to do it the right way, but you've got to change more than a couple of words because that does come up in the similarity report. And if you did get it from a source, even if you paraphrased or summarized, you have to make sure there's a citation. By paraphrasing and summarizing, you can demonstrate your understanding of concepts, and quotes should not just be put in the paper. You want to apply and analyze the quote. What does it mean? How does it apply to the topic that you're discussing? Quotes should not be more than 20% of the paper. There were a couple of papers that came pretty close to 20% and a couple that were just a little bit over. If you're using according to, it's always according to the author, not the book or the journal. Use at least 3 headings. What I think I said to you last week is if you take each major requirement and make it a heading, you have outlined the paper. Your citations and references must match. You cannot list a source as a reference if it's not cited, and if it's cited, you need to have a reference. APA means know you, your, first person, or contractions. And cliches, unnecessary words and phrases should be avoided. And last week I gave you lists of those in the discussion. Best practice is to use 1 citation per section or 1 citation per paragraph. At the graduate level, that's what you should be doing. Use updated sources. I get a little concerned when I see a 1990 source or even worse, a 1980 source. Use updated sources. Address all the content requirements comprehensively. Cover it well. 1 sentence is definitely not comprehensive. And I had a little trouble with some of the papers this week that were not written clearly and concisely. You want to have 1 thought per sentence, and all those extra words and phrases make my head spin sometimes. It was spinning this afternoon if anyone was watching. Warning, there are faculty that stop reading papers when you hit word count requirement. I know of these people. They say if it goes over the word count, they're not going to look at it. or not look beyond the word count. And if you put in additional 1,000 words into a paper, that's like giving us another paper to grade, which does not make us usually very happy. I send every paper through Turnitin. You need to know that faculty get different reports from students. When we move to Blackboard, papers will go through Turnitin automatically, and we'll get an instant report. So be careful. I would submit your paper just to check it to see if it is a high similarity report. If it is, make some changes, fix it. You don't need to send, at least to me, the similarity report. All right, these are some of the cliches that I found in the papers this week. Task at hand, first and foremost. Last but not least, make or break the company. With that being said, when all is said and done. These are the extra phrases that add no value. You don't need them. Here are some of the unnecessary words and phrases that were in the paper this week. Very, overused, unnecessary word. And also, just use and. Avoid overusing and. Due to the fact that you can use since, in order to use to. Adjectives, you don't need the greatest or great or utmost. Superlatives are rarely true and difficult to prove. Always, never, every, and all are examples. Use the publication date, not the download date. Avoid blogs, sites that are selling services, and cheat sites. None of those are accepted sources. Write in business language. Somebody wrote something was mind-blowing. That's not really business language. Avoid generalizations unsupported by sources. You know, the greatest in the world, everybody in the world agrees. And you add the paragraph or page number to a citation for quotes. If it's not a quote, you do not need the page number or the paragraph number. Avoid rhetorical questions. Do not end sentences with a preposition on, in, of, with, for, from. Avoid parenthetical phrases or personal opinions. Submit plagiarism checker just to review it or turn it in. Excuse me. Include the author, publication, title of journal, and journal in your citation, in your references, in your references. Sorry, I needed a drink of water to clear my throat. Use spell check and check your word usage. Sorry, when my allergies are acting up, this is how my voice gets. And living in Florida, my allergies are always acting up. Use directions to create 3 to 5 word headings. Do not use the directions as a heading. Already mentioned about 1 citation per section, 1 idea or thought per sentence. And Googling your research is a bad idea. Google, and by that I mean any search engine, it gets you immediately into purchase paper sites, into sites selling services, into blogs. Page 1 of Google is rarely good, so be careful. All right, too many citations. You don't want a citation at the end of every sentence. It makes it much harder to read the paper. What I had said last week was what you can do is start your paragraph with the citation, and in this case it would be Knickey and Williams, the authors of the book, and then state, and you say whatever they state, and then put another citation at the end of the paragraph. That does a really good job of covering you for that paragraph, because if it's the same authors for every sentence, it really does break up the flow of your paper if there's a citation after every single sentence. Use the university resources. I don't think it was anyone on the call, but perhaps some of the people who will watch the video. I might have said to you, use University of Phoenix resources to improve your writing. So I'm going to tell you what some of those are. You go to the university library tab, or first the library tab, then university library, Center for Writing Excellence, and you'll see grammar checking tools. Use those tools. You can submit your paper for review. You would need to do it no later than Sunday night so that there's time to get it done before you have to submit on Monday. but that is a great resource. You can send your paper through. It's going to give you things that you should be correcting. If your writing is not clear, it's going to help you make it clearer. If you go into tutorials and guides, here are some of the sources you will find. Writing and style guides, APA information, samples, academic integrity, resources for speakers of other language. If English is not your first language, that is a great resource. There's something on grammar and reading. There's lots of tools. Use them, especially if I said you need to use University of Phoenix writing tools. Here's another source, also in the Center for Writing Excellence. By the way, there's also a Center for Math Excellence, if that's an issue for you. Online text correction. It will help you fix the things in your papers that are unclear. The shortest paper to grade was 20 minutes. The average was 30. With a class of 24, that's 12 hours. And one paper took an hour. So that's why you didn't get papers back until this afternoon. All right, so now we're going to get into week 6, but I'm going to stop, give you a chance to turn on your microphones to see if anyone has a question about the week 4 papers. Okay, then let's get into what you have to do for week 5. You are doing a presentation again, and this time it's going to be on tools. So I've started my presentation with a quote about tools. We shape our tools after our tools shape us. Marshall McLuhan is a well-known author, professor on communication and using tools effectively. All right, so the tools were located in an appendix. It's not in the chapter readings. You're going to look at project versus process. The difference. A project has a specific purpose and has a fixed period of time. A process is a series of steps. It has a specific goal, but you don't know when it's actually going to end. So you're going to be looking at 2 different things, and one is a process and one is a project. Here are some of the basic quality tools. You do not need to use all of those. I'm going to start at 12 o'clock, which says a check sheet. Your next is a control chart. And if you look at a control chart, you can see that some things are way below the line, some are way above. Those are the things that are out of control. The things that are within the mid-range are in control. A histogram you've seen before. A Pareto diagram, that's the 80-20 rule. You don't need to use that for this particular class. A scatter diagram is a great way of finding out where things fall. The things that you are going to use, you're definitely going to use a flow chart this week, and you're going to use a Gantt chart. A fishbone diagram is one of the more well-known quality tools, and people use it all the time, but you don't need to use it this week. All right, so you're going to be doing a Gantt chart and a flow chart. A Gantt chart is for managing projects, and remember that has a start and an end date. A flow chart is used for understanding and improving processes. This has a goal, but not necessarily do you know when it's going to be over. All right, so your first thing that you're going to be doing is a job search. So is a job search a process or a project? Does it have an end date? Can anyone answer that one for me?
The process.
It is a process. So in that case, we would use a flow chart. So job hunt steps, and I did this as basically as I could to give you an example. Your chart should probably include more details. Okay, so first thing is decide on your career goals, look for possible jobs, develop a resume, send it out, prepare for an interview, send a thank you note. So these are flowchart symbols. The most important symbols are tasks, decision points, and flow of material. We're not really going to put anything in storage in what we're doing. So we are just going to use the rectangle, the diamond, and the arrows in our flow chart. So here's my flow chart for a simple flow chart for job search. Decide on career goals as a task, look for possible jobs, develop basic resume. So those are all processes, and they have arrows because they go one after another. Then I get to resume. This is a decision point. Does it need changes or doesn't it need changes? And then you can see there's a yes-no path. If it's yes, I have to edit it. If no, I send it out. Then I prepare for an interview. I go to an interview. Then I have a decision point. Did I receive an offer? If no, I have to go back to look for possible jobs. If it's yes, I could negotiate and then accept and send a thank you note. So be sure your flow chart has decision points, which are the triangles or the diamonds, and arrows. Do not take a flow chart and submit it. You want to create a flow chart. And I did this flow chart in PowerPoint. I just created it in PowerPoint. The next part of the assignment is you are going to look at flow chart, the advantages and the limitations. So I just put the outline here for you, a plus for advantages and a minus for limitations. You're going to put in the business applications for a flow chart and apply it to your job or your company. How much you use a flow chart in your job. All right, so now we come to vacation planning. That's the second thing that you're going to do. So is vacation planning a project or a process?
Project.
It is, because it has an end date. You know when you're going on vacation. Good. So in this case, then, we would use a Gantt chart. So here I've done another thing with the list of things that you would do, and this is, again, basic, and you need to add more to yours. Pick a date, decide where you're going, check alternatives, make a decision, book your trip, and prepare for your trip. So here's a Gantt chart for building a house. The important thing about a Gantt chart is that down the left-hand side are the steps, and across the top are the dates. And in a Gantt chart, sometimes things overlap. You can see in building a house, plumbing and electric can be done at the same time. And you can't do the flooring until you do the painting. So this is a Gantt chart. So here's my Gantt chart for planning a vacation. You can see all of the things that I talked about which were the activities. Those are down the column on the left-hand side. And across the top, I've just done days. You can do weeks, you can do months. Even if you've got a huge project, you can do years. What I also did in this particular Gantt chart was I said who was responsible for it. So pick a date, everyone in the family does it, which can be done about the same time you start looking at locations. We've assigned Dad to check availability. Everyone has to make the decision. Dad's responsible for booking the air. Mom's responsible for booking the hotel. Everybody's going to prepare, and everybody's going to go on the trip. So create your own Gantt chart for a family vacation. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Just wanted to give you the idea. Gantt charts can be created in Excel, in PowerPoint, or Word. Any of those programs work. Some of you may have Project on your computers. That's a great program for creating Gantt charts, but if you don't have Project, use Excel, PowerPoint, or Word. Again, you're going to discuss the advantages and limitations of a Gantt chart. You're going to discuss Gantt chart uses in business and apply it to your job. So you can see the outline for both the Gantt and the flow are very similar. So reminders from a week ago when you did a presentation, use first word consistency, write in bullets, not sentences or paragraphs, follow the rule of 6, which is 6 words per line and 6 lines per slide, use at least a 20-point font, include an introduction or agenda and a summary. Be sure your flow chart and Gantt charts are detailed. Don't make them really scant. Balance your use of words and graphics or illustrations. Don't write in all caps. Try to submit all the elements in one file. Don't submit the chart separately. Include a question and reference slide. Use the sans serif fonts, which are the stronger fonts that are clearer and easier to read on slides, and address all content requirements. There's your fonts again, the comparison of sans serif and serif. Create your own slide presentation. Don't send me something that already exists. Do not just copy what I did in the sample. Use the textbook at minimum as a reference, and you can add citations to the slides or to the note page. All right, so these are your required slides. For Gantt and flowcharts, it's about 4 slides each. The list of steps, your chart, the advantages and limitations in business applications. So you need those for Gantt and Flow, so those are 8 slides, and then you would add the other required slides, which are the title, the agenda or the introduction, the summary or conclusion, the question slide, and the references. And there they are. Include speaker notes. Make sure if it's speaker notes, it's detailed, or you can do the voiceover again. That's your choice. I was really pleased that about 5 people did voiceover last time. All right, so what do you still need to know about the presentation or the content of the week 5 assignment? And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get back to the main page, see if anyone else has joined us. And it looks like Jean has joined us. And what questions do you have? You can either turn on your microphones or type them into the chat area.
I have a question. So when looking
could you turn up your microphone just a little?
Oh, sure. One moment. Let's see how I do that. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So my question is, when I'm doing the flow chart and the Gantt chart, where exactly would I find that in the PowerPoint presentation? Is it listed underneath charts in the PowerPoint itself?
You're creating the Gantt chart and the flow chart. So in the slides that I just used, did you see them?
I did.
Okay. So what I did was I created the presentation to try to follow what you need to do. So I'm not sure I understand your question, Jean.
Okay, so in the PowerPoint presentation, I know they have a section where you can use graphs and charts. Would those two specifically be found in that area in WordPerfect?
Oh, okay. Now I understand what you're saying. You know, I haven't used it that way. I've always created my own because I find it easier than filling in blanks on something that's been created.
Okay.
It is likely that there are charts within PowerPoint that show you how to do that. I know I've seen things similar to it, so they probably are there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I misunderstood your question.
Oh, no worries.
Other questions?
What was the other program that you mentioned if we wanted to use that one, the 4th one?
You mean the project?
Project? Okay.
Yeah, that is a Microsoft program. It does not usually come with the Office suite, and it's pretty expensive, and it is hard to use. So unless you've used it before and have it already on your computer, I wouldn't even bother with it.
Okay, scratch that question then.
Make it easy. Do it in PowerPoint, Word, or Excel. Makes it much easier.
I assume for the flowcharts, you don't mind if those are done in Visio. Is that correct?
That's fine.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I just have feedback. I really appreciate all the tips and the help with these live sessions. They've been phenomenal, and I really do appreciate that. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Johnny. This is, just so you know, an instructor option. Nobody has to do this. So because of teaching the first class, I like to do this because I think there's a lot more angst when you're starting a new program. And as I've said before, this is not the next course in a bachelor's degree. So I like to do this because I think it helps you. And so I can't tell you if this is going to continue with anybody else in the program because it is instructor option. Although I can tell you that once we go to Blackboard, which is probably not your next class, but the class after, that there is an easier way of doing this in Blackboard. So maybe more people will do it, but I can't speak for anybody else. But I'm glad you
does go into effect starting with the next.
I'm sorry, say again, Daisy.
I said Blackboard is going into effect starting next class.
Oh, it is in your next class?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I thought it was April. So then, and have you gotten messages about Blackboard and what you have to do to use it?
I actually signed up for a workshop that I started today, and it seems fairly easy to maneuver through. It's going to take some getting used to, but it's fairly simple.
Yeah, it does. It will take some getting used to. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, then I think we can call it a night. Thank you for my usual cast of characters joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
I'll see you online.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
You're
Bye.
welcome.